honor and privilege to be this MC to host this forum today. I am Puran Karata, Member of Parliament for the Transnational Government and Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Women, Culture, and Heritage, which to mark the importance of today's International Day of the Commemoration of the Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and the prevention of this crime. This International Day is commemorated by the United Nations annually on the 9th of December each year. The purpose of this day is to raise awareness of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide and its role in combating and preventing the crime of genocide globally. Before we start today's event, we would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 15, the Mississaugas of the Credit. We acknowledge the Indigenous people who are the traditional guardians of this land, and we acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory. We respect all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who we call home. Next, may we rise for the Ahamanaka moment of silence. Let us all rise to observe a few moments of silence in respect of the Tamil heroes, our pioneers, who sacrificed their lives to prevent the genocide perpetuated on the Elam Tamil, the innocent civilians who lost their lives in the hands of the Islamic State and its troops, as well as our brothers and sisters from various other parts of the world who endured the crime of genocide and mass atrocities such as the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, the Uyghur genocide, the Kurdish genocide, and all the other genocides that were heinously perpetuated against the innocent. Thank you. You may have this today. I would now like to introduce the Honorable Deputy Minister, Ms. Lakshmi Vayapuri, Member of Parliament for the Transnational Government of Tamil Nadu, Deputy Minister for the Ministry of International Affairs, to give the welcome speech for today's event.
Honorable Vivian, guests, and ladies and gentlemen, today is the day declared by the United Nations as the International Day of Justice and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and of the prevention of this crime. On this day, all are gathered here to embark on a journey and that we can voice against genocide and its impact. That is borders, customs and customs, language and skin tone differentiate us. But we are all brothers and sisters of the global south. And the one common factor that unites us is all we belong to groups that have endured genocide, partly or in force. Therefore, it is incumbent on us to work together to prevent genocide from happening. It is heartbreaking to note that many genocides around the world are being deliberately ignored for political and geopolitical reasons, and the perpetrators of genocide are always not free. Let us all resolve today in solidarity, that we will all relentlessly work together to end impunity, that we will work together to end genocide wherever it happens in the world. And through our advocacy, we will make sure the perpetrators of genocide are brought to justice by accomplishing the above without mission. Let us hand over a thankful word free of genocide to our future generation. With this solemn call, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, Ms. Lakshmi Vaidapuri. Our first speaker this evening was elected as a member of provincial parliament on June 2018 for the riding of Scarborough H4. He serves as chair of the Standing Committee on Regulations and Private Bills, vice chair of the Standing Committee on the Government Agencies, member of the Standing Committee on Social Policy. He is a retired citizenship judge, World Vision Canada Multicultural Council Ambassador, and member of the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada. For 36 years, Aris Barkan has been actively involved in Canadian political, social, multicultural, human rights, educational, and cultural spheres. For decades, Mr. Barkan has advocated for recognition, commemoration, memorialization, redress, and education on numerous human rights violations, crimes against humanity, and genocides. He has collaborated with many Canadian organizations, educational institutions, scholars, various levels of government, and victim groups to uphold justice, to bring healing to victims. He was instrumental in the Canadian Parliament and government's recognition of the Armenian genocide. Furthermore, he played an active role in the recognition of genocide by the provinces of Ontario and British Columbia. In addition, he was influential in the introduction of the Toronto District School Board's grade 11 genocide, historical, and contemporary information courses. Furthermore, his experience includes serving as a member of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario since June 2018, served as a federal citizenship judge from 2015, served as the first executive director of the Government Relations Office of the Armenian National Committee of Canada, served as the secretary of the Canadian Ethnocultural Council in addition to changing the Political Affairs Committee, Multicultural Council Ambassador, World Vision Canada, founder and chair of the Lebanon Settlement Center, helped settle over 250 Syrian Armenian families, president, Canadian Armenian National Federation, board member of the Armenian National Committee of Canada, international elections monitor representing Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe for the 2006 parliamentary election in Armenia, founding member of the Darfur Solidarity Coalition, founding member of Canadians for Genocide Museum, and a staunch human rights activist participated in the National Canadian Umbrella Organization Roundtable UN World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance. It is with great admiration to call upon the Honorable Member of Provincial Parliament, Mr. Aris Barkan, to deliver his address.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here today with you to commemorate this important day in world history. I'm so pleased to see so many friends and colleagues that we have worked together in the past on so many of these issues that we're going to discuss today. Genocide, education, denial, human rights, crimes against humanity. These are important for all of us. So first of all, I would like to recognize some of the organizations who are participating in this commemoration today. We have with us, of course, the PGTE. We have the Hellenic Congress, we have the Alpha Group, we have C.
Let's say you go ahead because it's going on well.
We have CPC, we have the Armenian National Committee, we have the Rwandan community members, Rwandan abroad. I hope I didn't forget anyone, because this is the mic is shut down. Why? There's still technical difficulties, regardless of how much we try to plan something, there will be always technical difficulties. So, without any further, my message, I'm going to forget the mic. Dear friend, the 20th century is considered a century of tears because during this century, numerous genocides took place around the world. Among them are the Armenian genocide, the Greek Pontian genocide, the Ukrainian Holodomor, the Jewish Holocaust, the Nanjing genocide, Cambodian genocide, Rwandan genocide, Darfur genocide, Tamil genocide, the Christians and the Yazidis of the Middle East, and many more. According to some estimates, up to 60 million people were killed due to the deliberate and state-sanctioned mass killing because the target victims belong to particular national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Canada and Ontario provided many genocide survivors and their families a heaven and place to heal from the genocide trauma. Furthermore, the House of Commons has declared April as Genocide Remembrance, Condemnation, and Prevention Month. And I am pleased to say that today, my colleague Vincent Kerr, who is a member from Home Valley North, tabled a bill to declare month of May as South Asian Race and Faith Education Month. And I was pleased to stand with him and support his motion. The United Nations declared December 9 World Genocide Commemoration Day. This is a global event instituted by the United Nations to commemorate victims of genocide and highlight humanity's responsibility to prevent further genocides. The last act of any genocide is the denial aspect of crime. Accordingly, in conjunction with the TGT, I organized this inaugural commemoration event to send a strong message to tyrants of the world that we will not be silenced, that we will stand in solidarity with the target nations to prevent new genocide, and we will combat their denial industry. It is essential to call a spade a spade. It is also essential to stand up for the truth and bring justice to the victims, their families, and the survivors. The victim nations need closure and healing from the trauma of the past. Without healing and closure to the victims, individually and collectively, there are no reconciliation. As the grandson of the survivor and the third generation of the Armenian genocide, I live the trauma every day, every time. The perpetrator questions or denies my grandfather's inhuman treatment, his survival story, and the loss of the entire generations of our family. Therefore, it is critical for us to send the message to the deniers that we will not bow down to their revisionist history and disgraceful history. We need to address this thorny issue head on because we owe it to the humanity to learn from the mistakes of the past so that we will not repeat the same atrocity again. Therefore, it is imperative to sensitize the future generations and educate them of the importance of the peaceful coexistence and respect for our diverse makeup and protect the vulnerable in our society. By doing so, we will be able to make the 21st century a better century and more humane century than the 20th century. Never again should mean never again, and our compass will be a better world for future generations. This should be our generation's legacy. I'm glad to see so many nations thus take to work in solidarity with each other to eliminate this thorny issue. And I am pleased to say that today, during the event, the various representatives will have their opportunity to address together and bring to highlight some of their nation's experience with genocide. I am hoping that this evening will be the launching pad for a bigger program, bigger cooperation. I hope that together we will build a coalition of the victim nations so that we can stand up for justice and rule of law, not only in our country, but all over. Thank you very much for your patience and listening.
You honorable member, Robertson, for that inspirational speech. Our next speaker is Arthur Maxowen from the Armenian National Committee. Welcome to the National.
No, go ahead. Do it back.
I haven't seen the boat, I was reading with me, but I figured instead of the boat, I would just see also. Good evening. Thank you to the transnational government of Canada. Thank you everybody for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the chance to tell you a little story that my grandfather and my grandmother used to tell me when I was little. My grandmother, in 1916, after her father and brothers were killed, was kidnapped from her house by a Turkish person who sold her to another family. A few months later, her aunt notices my grandmother in the neighborhood away from the other side of the town playing. She decides that the following day she's going to go back and kidnap and take my grandmother and bring her back to her family. My grandfather, at the age of 15, with his father, brother, and friends, is forced to march to the desert of Deir Zor, where they are met with a spray of bullets from Turkish soldiers. Turkish soldiers were trying to kill everybody, make sure nobody escaped alive. My grandfather, he was wounded. He pretended to be dead and laid amongst the dead until the Turkish soldiers had left. Then he stood up and eventually, over many, many weeks, made his way to Aleppo Syria. These are some of the common stories. I'm quite sure each and every single one of them got some stories that their people have gone. This is what our children need to know and to learn. Children bought and sold many times, men killed, noblemen hung, women raped, and on and on. The Armenian genocide is called the first genocide of the 20th century, although it's a little bit misleading. because the Ferrero and Namaka genocide in Southwest Africa, which is currently Namibia, was the very first genocide in 1904, the Armenian genocide in South Africa. Raphael Lemkin, 1944, coined the word genocide, and he defined it as premeditated, systematic campaign to exterminate an entire people. The word genocide consists of the Greek prefix genos, meaning race or tribe, and Latin suffix "cide" meaning kill, hence the intent of killing a race. Genocide was recognized first as a crime under international law in 1946 by United Nations and codified as an independent crime in 1948 during the Genocide Convention. The convention has been ratified by 149 states as of 20. And the article of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide states, in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in parts, national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measurements intended to prevent birth from within the group, last but not least, forcibly transferring the children of another. For a crime of genocide, there are two main elements. One is mental, and the second one is physical. The physical one that we just read, but the mental, that is where it stays people's memories for years and years. The Armenian genocide was the systematic killing and deportation of the Armenians by the Turks. 1915, during World War I, leaders of the Turkish government set in motion a plan to expel massacre deportations finally ended. When the deportations finally ended, there was 1.5 million Armenians that were killed and many more forcibly removed from the country. The Armenian people have made their home in the Caucasus region of Eurasia for some 5,000 years. For some of that time, the kingdom of Armenia was an independent entity. At the beginning of the 4th century, for instance, it became the first nation in the world to make Christianity a religion. But for the most part, all of the region shifted from one empire to another. During the 15th century, Armenia was absorbed in the Ottoman Empire. In spite of all these atrocities and difficulties, the Armenian community thrived under Ottoman. They tended to have better education and wealthier than their neighbors, turned to resent their success. This resentment was compounded by suspicions that the Christian Armenians would be more loyal to Christian governments, such as the Russian governments, than the Turkish government. Turkish Sultan Abdülhamid II, obsessed with loyalty for all, and infuriated by the growing Armenian campaign to win basic civil rights, declared that he would solve the Armenian question once and for all. And he has made this comment: "I will soon settle those Armenians." I will give them a box on the ear which will make them relinquish their revolutionary ambitions. Between 1894 and 1896, this box of ear took the form of state sanctions program. In response to large-scale protests by Armenians, Turkish military officials, soldiers, and ordinary men sacked Armenian villages and cited the massacre of their citizens. Hundreds of thousands of Armenians. In 1908, the new government came to power in Turkey. A group of reformers who called themselves Young Turks. They overthrew the Sultan Abdülhamid and established a more modern constitutional government. At first, the Armenians were hopeful that they would have a place in this new state, but they soon learned that what the national mystic young Turks wanted, most of all, was to Turkify the empire according to this way of thinking. Non-Turks were a great threat to the East. On April 24, 1950, the Armenian genocide began. That day, the Turkish government arrested and executed several hundred Armenian intellectuals. There are many pictures that show these intellectuals hung, crucified, killed. These are all evidence books in the archives. The marchers were stripped naked and forced to walk on the scorching sun until they dropped dead. People who stopped to rest, they were shot. At the same time, the Young Turks had a special organization, which in turn organized killing squads or butcher battalions to carry out, as one officer put it, the liquidation of the Christian elements. These killing squads were often made up of murderers and other ex-convicts. They drowned people in rivers, threw them off cliffs, crucified them, and burned them alive. In short order, the Turkish countryside was littered. After the Ottomans surrendered in 1918, the leaders of the Young Turks fled to Germany. Why Germany? Because Turkey had promised them not to prosecute them for genocide. However, a group of Armenian nationalists devised a plan known as Operation Nemesis, to track down and assassinate the genocide. Ever since then, the Turkish government has denied that the genocide took place. The Armenians were the enemy force, they argue, and their slaughter was a necessary war measure. Turkey is an important ally of Canada, the United States, and other Western nations. And so their governments have been slow to condemn the long war. On April 23rd, Canada, 1996, House of Commons passed a resolution stating that this House recognized on the occasion of the first anniversary of that tragedy, which claimed more than 1.5 million lives, that took place on 19. On April 21st, 2004, finally, the House of Commons of the Parliament adopted a motion recognizing the Armenian genocide. Since the Senate had already passed a resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide, June 15, 2020, the adoption of the bill MPA finalized by Canada's legislature of the fact of the Armenian genocide. And on April 19, 2006, the Right Honorable Parker, the Prime Minister of Canada at the time, issued a statement after a motion was passed that stated the House of Commons acknowledges the genocide of 19 and condemns this act as crime against humanity. And interesting statements followed that. And the statement said, we must never forget the lessons of history, nor should we allow the enmities of history to divide us. The freedom, democracy, and human rights enjoyed by all Canadians are rooted in our mutual respect for one another. March of 2010, the U.S. Congressional Panel voted to recognize the genocide. In October 2019, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution that recognized the Armenian genocide. And this past April, President Biden issued a statement saying the American people honor all those Armenians who perished in the genocide that began 106 years ago. The reason I tell you all this is because you understand how long it took before the genocide was recognized. Today, 33 countries formally recognize the Armenian genocide, including the United States, Germany, France, Italy, of course, Canada, Russia, Brazil, and the European Union. Turkey denies the genocide, spends multi-million dollars annually on public relations and advertising firms to minimize and soften the effects. The Armenian genocide was used as a blueprint for the Holocaust and other genocides that followed. Hitler, in his August 22, 1939, document that he sent to Washington in Berlin, said, I have issued the command, and I will have anybody who utters but one word of criticism executed by a firing squad. that our war aid does not consist in reaching certain lines, but in physical destruction of the enemy. Accordingly, I have placed my deathbed formation readiness for the present only with orders to send to death mercilessly and without compassion men, women, and children of Polish derivations and language. Only thus shall we gain the living space which we need. He turned around and he said, after all, who speaks today of the Armenian annihilation? How can you finish a speech about the movement of many genocides, Holocaust, massacres that follow? Regardless of how you tell the story, there is doom, death, pain, suffering of innocent children, youth, women, men, and elders. Today, I stand with you remembering all genocides, Holocaust, massacres, atrocities against mankind, remembering the past, and I encourage you to continue honoring your forefathers by building a brighter future for all.
Thank you, Mr. Mansell, for that informative genocide. And thank you for your efforts in being a strong advocate for human rights and launching your hard work. Our next speaker this evening is member of provincial parliament for the riding of Don Valley North since June 2018. Mr. Vincent Key. He is parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industry, and member of the Standing Committee on Regulations and Private Bills. I now welcome the Honorable Member of Provincial Parliament, Vincent.
No, that's going on live.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Yeah.
You can hear you well.
Yeah, it's thank you for introducing. So my name is Vincent. I'm the member of provincial parliament for Don Valley North. So to begin, I want to thank you, my best friend, Alice Papiket, for inviting me to join you all the recognition of the World Genocide Commemoration Day, as declared by the United Nations. My gratitude extends to him for his remarkable efforts to bring attention to the horrors and the genocide, and for his advocacy of victims and survivors. I remember his past bill in genocide education. I spoke for the second reading. I'm humbled and honored to take part in this event to share my thoughts and to pay tribute to the victims of all genocides throughout the source of history. This horrific tragedies leave behind a trail of tears and human remains. On December 13, 1937, an unforgettable and indefensible catastrophe occurred, which is known as Nanjing Massacre. In Chinese, they call Nanjing Da. Japanese troops captured Nanjing, the China's capital, and started 6-week-long bloody slaughters in the city.
During the winter, about 300,000 vulnerable children, civilians, and unnamed Chinese soldiers were brutally murdered, and over 20,000 women were raped and tortured. While these extraordinary shocking numbers cause us to cry out collectively in disbelief and sorrow, we must remember too that the victims are so much more than numbers on the genocide record. They each had names, they have lives to live, families to love, to go dreams, place to go, dreams to discover, and these things to fulfill. They have value. Together, we have the opportunity to honor the victims whose futures were senselessly stolen by genocide. As we honor them today, with heads bowed and hearts heavy, let's also remember their sacrifice and that of their families and their descendants who remained traumatized by the legacy of the vicious and cold-hearted extinction of lives en masse. Whenever we allow human beings to be treated as less than human, outsiders, or scapegoats, we risk contributing to conditions that makes genocide possible. That is why it is crucial for the future of humanity that we never turn away or remain silent in the face of suffering we see ruthlessly imposed upon others by people who are intoxicated by power and control. At any cost, there is never a justification for mass murder. We must work hard to ensure that we create and protect an environment in Canada where we all feel we have a place to belong. We need to respect the fact that someone we identify as different from us does not mean they are any less human. Despite all of our differences, we each deserve to be treated as equals, whose lives have meaning and value. Therefore, as a MPP in Ontario, I have the responsibility to ensure that our differences are respected and our diversity is celebrated. Home to a variety of diverse and multiculturalism communities, Ontario cultivates a climate of inclusion, which is essential to creating a society where the seeds of genocide will not take root. That is why we must remain vigilant to protect against any threat to our peaceful existence. Let's always remember, when united, we stand strong. When divided, we falter and fall. So as my friend has mentioned in the beginning, I'm so happy to share with you that my private member's bill, Bill 34, an act to proclaim May as Anti-Asian Racism Education Month, has passed third reading today morning. And thank you, my good friend. Thank you for your confidence and support. Despite to support this period, this bill this morning. Thank you, Alex. This bill promises to raise awareness about the shameful presence of anti-Asian racism in our midst. Too many Canadians of Asian heritage have been the targets of racism strikes and physical assault that have escalated since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. I am determined to ensure that the disturbing rise in anti-Asian racism will not grow into a dangerous trend. Through awareness and education campaigns, I and many my supporters will strive to enlighten Canadians of all backgrounds about their Asian Canadian neighbors, while I emphasize their value placed in our shared history and future, as we recognize their worth contribution to our Canadian way of life. On this World Genocide Commemoration Day, please join me in my quest to envision and create a more human world for our children and theirs to inherit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MVP, Mr. Vincent, for your continued efforts and human rights champion, bringing the right to fight part justice for victims of genocide. Congratulations on your passing of the private bill and your effort justice for those. Up next, we have a dance tribute to the Commonwealth's great heroes, the Martyrs, sacrificing their lives to prevent the genocide perpetrated on the people of the Commonwealth. The dance will be presented by Ms. Sudarshini, student of South Sudanese School of Art. Now welcome the dance to the stage.